Welcome, everyone. I'm Cathy Bartuli from theintimacydojo.com, and I'm here tonight with Carol Look from attractingabundance.com, which is one of my favorite people. Thank you for joining us, Carol.
Hi, Cathy. This is a pleasure talking with you.
I've learned so much from listening to your recordings, your classes. When people want to be more intimate, they want to be more connected. How important is self-esteem?
I think self-esteem can almost be the most important piece of being intimate, because if you have low self-esteem, if a man or woman has low self-esteem, they tend to let themselves be treated more poorly than someone who has high self-esteem. And that means in the dating world or in any kind of intimacy, that means they will let someone walk all over them, influence them a little too much, talk them out of decisions that are really good for them. And so if you don't have your own high self-esteem and basic self-worth, really solid, normal self-worth, then you can't regulate your feelings and your thoughts when someone asks you to do something,
Right.
If that makes sense. So if someone has low self-esteem, they'll behave completely differently than someone who has high self-esteem will say, that's not okay for me, and if it's not okay for you, that it's not okay for me, I'm not having a second date.
Yes.
Right? So that's how people get into real trouble, actually.
Yeah, if you don't value yourself, if you feel like you're not enough, you don't have value, it's really easy to say, oh, if that person's going to be nice to me, I have to take whatever they'll give me. And that's a really slippery slope. Once you start going down that, it actually reinforces the low self-esteem if you're not speaking up.
Right. I get to have crumbs. That's all I'm worth. They threw a couple of crumbs. I should be grateful for a couple of crumbs instead of being treated respectfully. So the slippery slope is the right phrase, because it can go on in one relationship. So it can go from the first date to the second date to the second month, or it can go on in someone's entire romantic history, where they accept, it's basically they accept unacceptable behavior. When you have low self-esteem, that's what you do.
So you're constantly not getting what you need. You're afraid to speak up and ask for what you want. And you're just unhappy. The relationship isn't giving you what you want out of it, but you're holding on just hoping. Go ahead.
Well, the relationship isn't giving you what you want, and instead of looking at the relationship or the match between the two people or the other person, if you have low self-esteem, you always blame yourself.
Yeah, that's very true.
And that is the trap for people who haven't worked enough on their self-value and self-worth.
What are some simple steps? People say someone has low self-esteem and they want to start building that up. They want to start clearing that and feeling better about themselves. What are some simple steps they can take to get started on that?
Well, there's an expression in the self-help world called esteemable acts. And it means that you do something that builds your self-esteem that has to do with integrity. And usually it's when you make a commitment to yourself or others, you follow through and feel good about it. So if you have decided that you need to be by yourself on a Friday night, and that's good for you, and you need to take care of yourself, when Joe Schmo calls, you don't go running. Right. Joe Schmo who didn't treat you very well sorry for all the Joes out there. Joe Schmo who didn't treat you very well last week. So that's one thing to do, is do esteemable acts, take care of yourself in any way you can, follow through with your commitments and your integrity, even if it's taking a walk, working out at the gym, finishing the book, doing your website, whatever it would be, right? That would feel like, hey, I followed through with me. If you don't treat yourself well and valuably, how is someone else going to know how to do it?
Really true.
Energetically, they won't actually do it. They'll take the cues from you.
A lot of people that have low self-esteem aren't very good at tuning into the things they do, the good things. And I found it really helpful to just spend a few minutes at the beginning or the end of the day and writing down a few of those things and referring back to it, because it reinforces it. We tend to ignore the things that we've done well, especially people that are feeling a little wobbly or insecure. So
exactly. Sometimes I ask my clients to write a list instead of just the gratitude list that you and I have talked about so many times in our work. Not just to write a gratitude list about your life, but write a list about what's valuable about you. So you might say, I'm an incredibly loyal friend. When I say I'm going to do a project, I totally follow through. I'm a great neighbor. I'm a great daughter. I'm a great son. Something where you find ways to look at the value that you actually offer and acknowledge it. Acknowledge it and say, hey, just because someone, a romantic partner or an intimate partner, didn't call me back, doesn't mean my value goes down.
In the same time, yeah. And if you're having trouble coming up with even that much of a list, you can ask your friends, your coworkers, your family, say, listen, I'm working on a project. What do you see that's valuable about me? You can borrow other people's value, at least until you get your own.
Right. A friend might say, your sense of humor cracks me up every time. Someone else might say, if I'm in a low spot and I call you, I know that you'll always get back to me. Even if it's the next day, you always care that I call, whatever it would be. So that's a great idea, too.
Do you have another tip for that? Or something else people could do?
You have to be vigilant about esteem, because the same way people who have low self-esteem had to learn that. So someone was consistently telling them they weren't valuable in their life. If you have a client, or we have a client who's an adult with low self-esteem, it means they were taught that. So, and they might have been taught it every day. You're no good, you're not going to amount to anything, just by a parent's behavior or how they looked at them or what they actually did. So I think you have to be really vigilant and do something for your self-esteem, to build your self-esteem, to build that muscle every day.
It can be
maybe that's telling yourself you have to go to bed on time tonight because you're worth it, because you're tired of dragging your rear end to work every morning because you've stayed up too late, whatever it might be.
You might ask yourself too, when did you learn that you're not worthwhile, and is it really true? So if you start questioning that belief, for some people it's true, just like people before Columbus thought the world was flat. There's no question about it. If you start questioning it a little bit, if you can get a crack in the door, it can open up nicely.
Exactly, like asking them, how do you know? So if they say, I'm not worth anything, how do you know that? Because I'm not. Well, because I'm not is not a good enough answer, right? Who told you that? Who taught you that? What makes you still think that? Well, the person didn't call me back. That doesn't make you not valuable. That makes them unable to see your value. Huge difference.
What can people do if they're already in a relationship and they want to develop their self-esteem?
Well, the problem is when they're in a relationship and they have low self-esteem, it's likely that there's a pattern that's been developed where they're probably not getting their needs met and not voicing it. The risk is if they start voicing it, they believe the other person is going to leave. That's the manipulative trap and setup going on. So they have to work on being okay and valuing standing up for themselves more than valuing keeping the relationship together. And plenty of times the other person does not walk away. Might threaten to, but they don't walk away. But if the person would rather be in a relationship than have integrity with their own self-esteem, then they'll stay in anything.
And you can start practicing with little things. You don't have to go up and bring the entire elephant herd out at the same time. You can pick a baby elephant and say, hey, we never really talked about this, but this is something I'd really like. We kind of fallen in a habit of doing it this way. Can we try something new?
Yes, so gently say, is it a good time to talk about this topic? I'd like to address this issue, and then be responsible about sharing your feelings rather than blaming the other person. You always is not a good place to start, but I feel hurt when is a great place to start. Or I feel baffled by, or...
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Carol. This is a great topic, and I hope people can, if you need help, Carol has some amazing products at www.attractingabundance.com, and we'd love to have you back again sometime.
Thanks, Cathy.
Thanks, Carol.